Tammy Hill.
And I'm Talia Johnson. And so today we're going to talk about social emotional learning in the classroom. And really what we were hoping that you guys get out of today, we know that there are a lot of practices that you include in your classroom already. So we know that we're not going to be saying a lot of new things to you. But we want to go back through and talk about the 5 keys of social emotional learning again, what skills are associated with each key, and then how you can incorporate these practices into your advisory cell. So we're going to be moving around doing a lot of activities today. We talked about teenagers and the teenage brain yesterday and about how they like, especially our boys, like the spatial activities. And so what we wanted to do was kind of embed in our presentation some activities that you can do with your kids in the classroom at the beginning of your advisory bell. As you guys are planning advisories, I heard a lot of conversation when you're going to pick the time and the location about how are we going to get them there and how are we going to get them started. I know some schools have devoted 45 minutes to advisory. Some schools have devoted 25 minutes to advisory. So with those shorter frames of time, we want to make sure we get started and we're able to kind of hit relationship building and the skills that we wanted to address with our students. So a good way to do that and maybe to motivate the kids to get to advisory would be to start your advisory bell with some fun activities that they're looking forward to and some ways that they can see your personality. Because I feel like working with our kids in CPS, that's what they want to know. They kind of want to know about you first. Before I do anything goofy, you need to do something goofy. Yep. Show me you're willing to take the risk, and I'll take the risk with you.
And I think one of the big things as we go through what social emotional learning is that it kind of sounds, it could kind of sound intimidating. Some teachers have told me, I don't know how to teach. I'm not a counselor, even though you are, that I don't feel comfortable teaching these kinds of skills. But the 2 websites that are up there are really small, but it says castle.org and edutopia.org. They're teacher-based websites, and there's different social emotional learning activities that are on those websites. So the ones that we go through today, like Talia said, putting your own personality in it, making it something that you can do that's comfortable, but still touches on those skills.
Yep. And the cool thing about the Castle website is Castle is the person who's been doing the most research in education around social emotional learning. So they actually have a collaborative, and they've teamed up with different states to put these into practice in schools. So what does it look like when we address these skills as part of our everyday school curriculum? And so like the state of Illinois has adopted a lot of the practices that Castle says are best practices. And so the cool thing about CPS and about this initiative is that we're kind of on the forefront of what it looks like everyone is moving to, really making sure we explicitly address social emotional learning inside our classrooms. All right, so the first activity, how many people have done any of the figure 8 activities? It's like a brain gym, figure 8. Yep, okay, so the Montessori, the Montessori group knows the brain gyms. So the point of brain gyms is this: your left brain and your right brain do different things. And when you're sitting still, they're not connected. So a lot of times we'll ask our students, okay, it's time to take the OAAs or it's time to take the benchmarks, and it seems like it's always time to do that. We've had them sit down all day. We haven't asked them to connect the right side and the left side of their brains. So the side of their brain that's in charge of motor versus the side of the brain that's in charge of language is disconnected, and we're going, do your best work. So the idea of brain gyms and figure 8 activities is to make sure that we have the left and right hemisphere of the brain connected. And that's when they do their best work. One of this, Harvard actually does this with their freshmen. They have them, actually do what we're about to do. They teach their freshmen how to do figure 8s. And what they found is that their freshmen perform better on standardized tests after having done this activity than before they did the activity. So I'll just kind of walk through the different stages of the activity that we're going to do today. So you have 2 chairs, and they are about like a yard apart in your classroom. So what you're going to do to make sure you're connecting the side of the brain is you're going to model it for your students first. So you're going to walk through the chairs in a figure 8. So the fact that you're crisscrossing through the chairs is already connecting parts of your brain. So your kids are like, we're cool, we can walk through the figure 8, this is kind of easy. The next thing is to make sure that they're swinging the opposite arm from their leg. So if I'm walking my left arm, I'm swinging this way. And I still need to do the figure 8. So opposite, which is really hard for me because I actually walk with the same arm. So my brains are never connected, I guess, my hemispheres. All right, so that's easy. The next part is to put a target on the wall in the middle of the chairs. So let's say you're teaching science. Science has a lot of terms I don't understand. Any science teachers want to throw out a term for me? Are there science teachers in here? I understand math. Chlorophyll. All right, so let's say for some reason.
Science teacher's taking notes.
They're taking notes. So let's say
He totally is.
We're talking about chlorophyll, and you want your kids to also know how to spell it, or maybe know the root of the word, so they can identify it on like those ACTs or standardized tests. So on a piece of paper on the wall, you could write the word chlorophyll. What you want them to do then is continue doing the figure 8, but they need to look at the piece of the paper the whole way around, okay? All right? So that's another way to help them with memorization. So they're looking at the target, and you don't want to hit the chair. That's kind of the key to. So now they got the figure 8 this way. What you want to do is make them go backwards.
The other direction.
Right? Which is a lot harder to look at that paper backwards than it is the other way. So just kind of like we as adults get used to doing certain tasks certain ways, you're making them do it differently. So you can incorporate an educational activity with the figure 8 activity.
It's the same thing. Anyone that works out in here, maybe talk about muscle confusion. So you don't want to work out the same way all the time, using the same muscle the same way all the time. It's the same idea with your brain, giant brain muscle. So,
All right. So now it's your turn. Yay! To do figure 8.
so we have how many people? 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14. So roughly a few on this side, roughly 6 or 7 on this side. So 7, 14. Not a math person. Okay. So go ahead, pick a side. You're both going to.
And there's actually 3 stations. There's going to be one in the back, right there.
It was. We got to put the chairs back.
Yeah, I'm going to steal your 2 chairs when you stand up. Do you mind relocating towards it? Sorry.
You need a chair.
Everyone needs to try it. You will remember it better if you do it.
Yeah, I get
You're going to do it one at a
One
time.
at a time. Go through a couple times. Because otherwise it'll be a little cramped. It's already cramped.
So they're going to walk through here. Sorry.
I'll sweat.
All right.
All right.
Need that on the wall.
Yep, you're looking at that at the wall, opposite of the leg. So if you want to start off with,
We can put them up there for you. This specific one. Yeah, we'll put them up on the same page we've been using all week.
Okay, I just lost it. There
Oh,
we
you guys,
go.
you have to first do it without moving your arms.
see?
You're not joking.
Not easy.
All right. enough on Friday.
All right, so you guys go through a couple times and then switch so that everyone gets a chance to do it. Oh, they set up another one over there. Okay. Yeah. If you naturally walk that way, then it's fine. Some people don't walk that way. Cool. All right. And so now here's your target. You have to keep your arms and legs swinging, arms and legs moving, and watch the target the whole time.
I'm doing the opposite.
Sorry.
Here you go.
We have a word now, which is creative.
Whatever you want. And some people do it with their ABCs. And so the people like in Harvard in their study, what they did is they started and then they had to recite the ABCs as they did it. And then once they did it, they have to recite the ABCs backwards. Yeah.
I will very scientific.
Yeah, you have to go the opposite direction.
Hang around this one.
Sounds good.
We're random anyway.
Your words.
Don't hurt your knee.
Yeah. She's doing some other kind of dance.
She's got her own thing going.
Are you guys going the same direction? No, you're going opposite. Okay. All right. So now do it while you look at the target. You gotta look at the target.
Work out the abs too.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right.
So we're all different, right? Well,
Exactly. We all see.
yeah, it's all put
There you go. All right, cool. Well, if you guys haven't done it, you guys can have a seat. Thank you. Thanks.
It's hard to go the other way. Yeah. All right.
gonna be good home.
You guys can have a seat. We won't really need them. Come on, go back to your other seats. We won't really need these too much anymore.
All right.
All right, give yourself a round of applause. Very good job.
All right. So that was just one way to practice the figure 8 activity. They actually have a bunch of different exercises to get your left and right hemisphere connected. Another simple one is just to have your students, if you're worried about your 7th to 8th graders having too much freedom, even in the circle, the infinity circle, what you're going to do is you can have them stand up at their desk, take their notebooks, And it's just a matter of putting their notebooks between their legs. They're still doing the 8 motion. So the key is that at some point your body is doing something that looks like an infinity symbol or the number 8. Okay?
And anything that anything that crosses the midline would be very, very helpful. That's one of the things that infinity motion, that you're actually crossing the midline. All right. Any questions on that one? We will put the directions for that one up. They were asked to put the directions up on that collaborative website
Oh,
they've been
yeah,
using all week, so we'll be sure to do that.
Yeah, we'll put a link. There's a whole book of activities, so we'll put a link to that book that you can download, and it's a PDF.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Is it the Brain Gym booklet from the 70s?
No, that one is called Infinity 8. It's Infinity 8 activities, yeah.
All right, so this one is self-awareness. So this is the first of the 5 keys for social emotional learning. So these are some of the basic questions that you would ask that would get at determining self-awareness and working on self-awareness. So what are my thoughts and my feelings? What causes thoughts and feelings? And how can I express my thoughts and feelings respectfully?
And if you don't want to write this, if you have your program in top part of your program there, or not the top part, in the middle part of your program for the week, can I steal yours?
Yes.
Just so you guys don't feel like you have to write a lot. I'm a type A personality, so I want to know what I need to write and where I need to write it. We have our circle, so the 5 things that we're going to talk about today, but the questions are what's in the gray at the bottom.
Okay, so when you all think of self-awareness, what do you think, what comes to mind when we talk about this component? Any ideas? Go ahead.
Knowing who you are,
Okay,
like knowing your strengths and weaknesses,
Strengths
what you
and-
like, what you don't like.
okay. Anything else come to mind? Yes?
Navigating your like physical space, like where you are.
Okay. Okay, that's a big one for 7th and 8th graders who their bodies are not proportional and they just don't have any concept of where they are in space. Yeah, bumping each other, everybody's getting mad. Yep. So anything else come to mind?
Learning style, the visual.
Okay. Okay. Anything else?
Kind of seeing yourself in the greater picture to say you can step out of yourself and say, I'm in a room right now where many people outside of this room are doing similar things.
Yep. And those are all, just think about how big and abstract those concepts are for 7th and 8th grade students. So the whole purpose behind this particular component is having them just understand where they are in space and time and all those kinds of, what is everybody else doing that's like me, and just making it more concrete for them. That's kind of some of the things that what is my purpose, which I think some of us might still be answering those questions even as adults, but it's really daunting when you're 7th and 8th grade. How can I express my thoughts and feelings respectfully? Any ideas on what comes to mind with that one? So if you had, a lot of these are going to overlap a little bit, like with self-management, it's going to come up a little bit. So some of them kind of overlap just a little bit. So when you talk about expressing your thoughts and feelings respectfully, what are some of the issues related to that you see with your students?
I'm thinking about cognitively, like thinking first, depending on what the issue you're facing.
Okay. Okay.
I think with the kids that teach at Riverview, their first emotion when something happens to somebody is to laugh, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. They just want to laugh at it.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand other emotions that
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah,
So that's a big thing, and that causes some problems.
it does.
Yeah. And that goes back to what we talked about as far as the brain research yesterday. They don't have the verbal skills that they need to even identify their feelings that they're feeling. Like they might know mad. I think we all know mad. For some reason, we all know when we feel mad or frustrated. But those other words, they don't really know how to articulate that they're feeling that way. And then it's funny that you use the example of laughing. Laughing is instinctual. So even as adults, when we have something and we don't know how to react, we laugh. We might do better at holding it in, but it is an instinct to laugh when you have no idea. So when you see those kids chuckling at something and you're like, why are they laughing? It's because they have no idea what else to do. So that's kind of a sign for us, like, okay, we're going to need to teach them the skills. They're showing us that they only have the instinct to laugh.
And it
So-
looks disrespectful, but
It does.
we need to understand it's probably not always just disrespectful.
Right, right, right. So one of the things about just kind of helping them with their thoughts and feelings, I know in elementary school I see it a lot, the poster with the faces of like, this is how I feel when I'm happy, embarrassed, sad, mad. And we stopped doing that for our teenagers, but they do need some explicit instruction on what they look like when they're mad or what they look like when they're frustrated. And helping, as an adult, we're helping them identify what they look like when they feel that way, or even just naming the situation. So I heard at lunch, Johnny was picking on you. Were you embarrassed? Give that word instead of, because they'll say, I'm mad. Are you sure you're mad? Or were you more embarrassed that led to you being mad? Mad is usually the last emotion. There's usually emotion previous to being mad, embarrassed. Someone didn't, disappointed. They didn't honor what they said. So let's help them find that first feeling before mad, because they'll always tell us mad. I'm happy or I'm mad. But we need to help them with those feelings in between those two.
Yep, and I think it's going to be a lot of practice with making sure that you're, like Cleo was saying, giving them the language and just having them kind of talk through it. It doesn't have to be some big counseling session. It could be, because usually if you have the students after lunch, you can't start on content anyway. Usually there's something that has come up that is going to maybe take a little bit of time to process through before you can actually get started anyway. So it's even those few minutes right when they first get to you that you can process through a lot of that stuff. Did I change? I didn't realize I changed it. Okay. So here, self-management. So what different response can I have to an event, and how can I respond to events as constructively as possible? When you think about self-management, what are some things that you think about with this one?
Maybe some deep breaths before you climb, counting,
Okay.
yourself.
Okay. So you're thinking about how to control your emotions so that you don't lash. You're thinking more about not lashing out. Okay. Any other ideas?
Finding out what works and doesn't work for you, knowing what skills, hey, I've tried this before, we can put this in a doesn't work column, we can put this in a does work column.
Do you think that you can manage yourself before you know your thoughts and feelings?
Can you do what?
Manage yourself before you know your thoughts and feelings.
It's harder, isn't it?
I think it'd be hard.
It's hard to do. And how many times do we jump into the school year with, we're going to do some calm breathing? And like, whoa, when am I supposed to do it? When I don't even know how I feel. So how am I supposed to know how to use that strategy? But I feel like this is the one that we focus on. Like, okay, we're going to help them manage themselves, but we haven't helped them become more aware of that first key, which is being more self-aware. So making sure that when we look at planning advisory next year that we're looking at self-awareness first before we could expect them to do some self-management. The other piece, when you go back to the research, we talked about how the drop in serotonin kind of ruins their ability to calm themselves that they at least had in elementary school. So it decreases that calming that they had in elementary school. So when we are talking about giving them breaths and the deep breathing, we need to think of strategies for them to slow down their reactions, because their hormones are going to tell them react and react quickly. And if your boy is going to tell you react even quicker, even faster than a female student would. And so a lot of the things that we need to teach them before we say the deep breathing and the calm down is how to not have the word vomit. We all have that kind of happen in our classroom where it's just, and it's out there. So we need to help them have ways to slow down their thoughts before their thoughts become their actions. And so that's a big piece of self-management that we tend to miss because we can't see it. We only see the end result, which is something completely inappropriate happening in our classrooms.
And I think that's one of the bigger things as we go through our day. There's so much that we have to cram into the course of the day. So the time to sit still for a minute and kind of think is really not in the schedule. We don't have time for any of that. But it really is a huge part of kind of figuring out what they're feeling first and then move forward.
So what are some ways to, I guess, be proactive against those compulsive events that you have in class?
Well, and so we're going to do an activity that kind of piggybacks on this because they all are kind of intertwined. But one of the nice things about that we're carving out in Advisory Bell is to have them kind of, like you said, practice consistently problem solving when they're calm. Because they're using the back of their brain, and the back of your brain is your automatic thinking. How many times can I teach this so it becomes automatic for you? And so it might be plugging into ways to slow down your thoughts. So it's meditating is a big way to slow down your thoughts. The yoga, that's focusing on the breathing, but practicing it daily or practicing it every advisory period so that it's something they do naturally, because when they're emotional, that back of the brain is going to kick in. And so if we haven't helped them get it until it's in the back of their brain, they're not going to do it for us. Kind of like we said in our session, back in the session with the sharing tables, they talked about how middle schoolers are consistently inconsistent. So we give them all these strategies that we want to see, but they can do it on Monday, and then all of a sudden it's like we didn't talk about it on Wednesday. And so advisory is a great time for us to continue practicing and knowing that we might not see it in mastery form until they're much older.
And I think that ways to do meditation, and because I'm not a big meditator, because I'm always kind of a big go fast person all the time, so I have a hard time sitting still. But I think there's lots of activities and ways to do it, and it doesn't have to be the typical one you might think of when you're sitting on the floor and everyone's breathing. It can be whatever's comfortable and whatever kind of fits your personality of your classroom, and even if your students aren't doing it all exactly the same way, then that's okay too.
I was just gonna suggest one thing I that worked for me a long time ago that hasn't worked for me lately is I had a room that was full of a lot of kids with ADHD. So after lunch, I would pull out this book of guided meditations, and basically it was for little kids. I think it's called like Kids Relax or Relaxing Kids or something. And they're all seated with their eyes closed, and it walks them through like breathing. And then it has maybe the story of Aladdin, and it's you're on your carpet and you're blah blah blah. And so it would help us kind of transition into our class time because I could diffuse them. You know what I'm saying? So like the guided piece, the guided meditation, worked for me a long time ago. I haven't dusted that book off in a while, but
That sounds good, but every time I try to do that at the beginning of class, there's always interruptions. Because right at the beginning of class, kids are coming in late. How do you overcome that when you need that calm? You got that 2 or 3 kids coming in late, that they've gone to the counselor. What do you do? How do you combat that?
I think one of the biggest things is setting up that expectation at the beginning, so even if those kids are going to come in late and that's going to be their schedule, they don't come in, hey, what's up? They come in quietly. Oh yeah, the rest of the class is meditating. I forgot. My bad. Let me come in and sit down. So that even if they come in late, they know the routine of the classroom, and they're not going to come in and disrupt everything that's going on. Because those are a lot of those things that those factors you can't control.
Yeah.
Sometimes what I do when the kids come in late, a lot of times the teacher can transmit it to the kids. I found that if I'm calm and if I show them a calm state, sometimes it will get to the calm state. So if they're coming in late, I may even shift where I'm standing over to them to try to transmit that energy.
But you're letting them in the room, even if they're late.
Well, yeah, they come in late, and you said they're kind of wired up when they come in, right?
Right, yeah.
So, when they come in, they sign in first. So that kind of gives them a routine. I have to sign, so I can do anything until I sign. Then, if I see that they're wired up, I'll kind of walk over to them and try to give them that calm energy. But if you're in the middle, so I don't want to do that. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what it's just, you don't want to I don't want to have to like break what I'm doing and deal with whoever's coming in, having to sign a planner. Just what we try to like, how do you establish a procedure where there is no interruption? Because that's important, that we're all doing the same thing, I think, and if we're constantly getting interrupted.
Well, see, the thing is, when they come in, they're probably seeking some attention when they come in. So,
Oh yeah, and that way, do you let them be a part of it, or do you exclude them?
Like you said, almost every day you're gonna have some
Yeah,
type of
every
disruption.
day.
Every day. So what I'll do when they come in late, I already got the other group started. I'll just repeat for those who came in late. This is what we're going to, and I go step by step through it again to get them on point, because you have to address them. Because if they come in late and you don't give them any direction,
Oh yeah, it don't
then
work.
they'll start running the classroom like, look at me. So, I'll just reiterate what I said, and I said, this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing it, this is what you need to do. Everybody else is doing what they're supposed to do. And so my focus is to get them where they're at.
Right.
Another thing that I've seen is that you have a peer that's assigned sometimes to do that, so that you don't have to stop doing what you're doing. And with the age level of 7th and 8th grade students, that's the possibility. Say, hey, come in. Okay, well today you're the person that comes in for the late people. You're the person that's re-explaining the directions. So then they know that you don't have to get up and do that person knows that's their job as they go over, and hopefully they do it in a way that's appropriate to catch them up on what they missed.
That's a good idea.
Is it important? I hear it's important to do it at the beginning. Is it important to have to do it at the beginning of the class to get your mind right? Or do you want to wait until you know you're not going to have any interruptions and do it at a different time during the class? Is it so important that it happens at the beginning?
I don't think that I don't think we've said that it should happen at the beginning. I know when I run my groups with the kids who I support, I always do something physical at the beginning because I'm expecting people to be late. So we're all moving around. When you move around, jump in the circle, follow Johnny. He'll tell you the activity. I would think the meditation part, if I'm going to do like a peaceful, quiet part, it's usually to get them back from a larger group activity. So we've got all that energy out that you had. We let you use the back of your brain. Now I'm going to work with the front of your brain. So I usually don't do it first as far as like meditating and those type of more calming activities. I usually do something different.
The reason why I'm saying is we had this, people come into our building with the 7th and 8th graders, and at the beginning of every class they did the bell and the meditating, and I sat in on a lot of them, and it didn't work. I mean, kids were coming in, I mean, they were not being respectful enough, and I don't think that worked. So is it that important to have to do it when you know you might get interrupted?
I think the point is trying to figure out what the goal is. What is the goal of the activity? If the goal is to work on a particular skill, then it makes sense to work on that skill at a time where everyone's going to be able to receive it. And if the beginning of the bell is not the time to do that, then pick a different time.
Well, maybe it is the best time.
So just to circle this up for time's sake, and to go back to some of the strategies that were thrown out, we were talking about meditating, and I know a lot of our kids aren't into the yoga meditation thing. So one of the things about emotions, we talked about somehow, anger is usually the first emotion they can identify. What research says about anger is that it lasts 90 seconds. And so one of the things before it's in and out of your body. So one of the things that I challenge some of my high school students to do and middle schoolers, so it's relevant for them, is to find their favorite song. What's 90 seconds of your favorite song? That when you get mad, you can go through that 90 seconds of the song. I challenge them to not find a song that's about hurting someone or about violence, because that's not going to help you. So it should be a song that's going to kind of bring you back. So 90 seconds of that song that'll remind you, like, it's not that big a deal. And, and maybe you need to dance it out. So 90 seconds of the song, while you dance it out, anger's gone, moving on to the next thing. Is another strategy you can use instead of meditation for our boys who don't want to do yoga and who don't want to sit and think about how they breathe. But in also your suggestions about how to bring people back from being late, what you guys said without saying it is, as teachers, you're their prefrontal lobe. We talked about how self-management and making plans is that prefrontal lobe. And so what I heard you say is, I let them know my expectations. I am the emotion I want to see in the classroom. I am calm. I go ahead and tell them, we've done A, B, and C. This is how you catch up. So I'm walking through the steps of how they can work through the plan. So I'm doing all that their prefrontal lobe would do as far as planning, organizing, and catching them up. And that's going to be the key for our middle school, our junior high students. And I feel like when we talked about even just the hallway behavior, them not knowing how to do their lockers, them not knowing what side of the hallway to get to, them always being late to class. I think last year, a lot of times we forgot that we needed to be their prefrontal lobe. We need to tell them, you walk on the right side of the hallway. And it might mean tell them, it might mean put a arrow on the hallway, a green arrow, this is right, a red arrow, you're walking the wrong way. But as many times as they need for us to be their management system, that's what they need of us at this age, because they are consistently inconsistent, even after a lot of pre-teaching.
Anyone have any questions so far? Okay. All right. So the next one should be our activity. All right. So here's basically what we're going to do. We're going to show you a picture. Can you all see the words up there? I'm wondering if I wonder what the lights is. One of the ones in the back, maybe? Okay. Better? Okay. So you all have 2 minutes to remember as much of it as you can. Give your timer. I can give your phone. All right. You're going to be asked to answer questions. All right. Come on, Trudell, Talia.
Okay. You can start.
All right, let's see how we did. What is the name of the family restaurant?
George's.
Oh, yeah.
All right. What was the name of the guy?
Joey.
Joey.
How many people are on running machines?
Two.
Gym?
Two. Ladies. It's one of the lead
Oh, very good. What color jacket is the old man who's feeding the pigeons? What is the name of the street the taxi's on?
First.
It's called the West Pole.
Yellow.
What's the name of the bookshop?
High five.
No.
World.
Oh, World
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. George is right.
Orange.
Orange.
Someone said orange.
Yeah. First Streets. Bicycle. I'm not sure why they're not lined up. Bicycles for World of Books. Very good. All right. How many of y'all think your students could have done that?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
one did it.
Yeah, some of
Yeah. Cause some of them were pretty.
So was it easy to remember the answers? And if so, why?
Some of them were in big letters and you want your attention. For example, George's was the biggest word on the entire screen. So that was pretty easy to remember. The colors I had a real problem with just because I wasn't paying attention to the colors.
How did you try to remember the things? Did anybody have any particular strategies?
I did that thing like where I say one thing, then I say the next, and I say that thing, say the next, and say another one, and say that,
First I had to decide where I was gonna eat, Joey's or George's, then after that I was gonna go to the bookstore and
Okay.
then work out.
So you planned the whole day in the
Yeah.
city, okay?
Plan a little story.
I did a grid. I started in the top corner and moved this way, which is probably why I remember the color of their leotards
Okay.
much less than I remember Joey's, which I know where it was in the grid, fourth column bottom. But I knew less about Joey's than I did about what was in the top where I started.
Okay.
I actually did it by safety.
By safety?
Yeah, I know that's crazy.
What do you mean by safety?
Because where Joey's restaurant, if you could remember, the young man with the bicycle almost ran a guy over. The hot dog stand was actually next to a construction. That's a pipe that could blow that up. Across the street, the guy was doing the pigeon. There was all calmness over there. Then you had the exercise on the other side of the field.
Okay.
So that's all.
Okay.
I started lesson planning the whole thing. I was like, what questions would I ask about this picture? So I started saying I want my paying attention to, I should have done colors, but everything else I was like, I know it's going to be, they're going to ask what's the name of the store, what's the name of this.
Okay.
I just kind of glanced at everything and tried to remember things. I remember 5 buildings and 2 cars and 1 bus.
Okay. That's pretty good. So I heard, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different ways to learn things.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of the things that we're going to do. I think in Naviance is one of the things that everybody's going to take a learning styles assessment, all the 7th and 8th graders. And so this will be really useful information because you all learned very different ways and remembered things very, very different ways. And this is another type of self-management activity that you can incorporate. It can be any picture, anything. The other part that we're not going to have time for this particular activity is you do it twice, maybe with 2 different pictures, is that you have them do it once like we did it, and then you have them do it again where they have partners, and the partner is trying to do something to get the other person off task. So whether they're tapping a pencil or whatever it might be, to kind of see the difference in their ability to focus. And those would be some really good, really simple activities you can do so then they can kind of think about different ways that they can fight through those distractions in the classroom and in and out wherever they may be. And those are probably fun activities. You know, obviously you got to give them some parameters. We're going to do all kinds of crazy stuff. But those are really good activities to kind of help with the self-management, help them learn how to focus, what they need to improve their study skills, get their work done, all those things.
There's a really fun thing you can pull up on YouTube. I don't know if you guys watch Crashbox on HBO. It's like a little kids game show. but there's Dora Smarmy is a news anchor on Distraction News, and they're giving like little tips, but the whole time there's all these things like flying around like crazy and to distract you, and it's like just a multiple choice game. I played around about this. Yeah.
I think that's important because we talked.
Oh,
Sorry. I think that's important too because this is a visual, and that one it sounds like it's more of an auditory. So what do you do when you're distracted visually when someone's giving you a message verbally? And a lot of our teaching involves us giving them verbal messages and lectures. And so there's a lot of distractions that happen in our middle school classes. So also just changing the concentration activity to make sure you include one that would have them look at how they concentrate with a world of distractions. And it sounds like what you mentioned would be a good way to do that too.
Any other comments or questions about this activity? Okay. We're gonna go through the script a little bit. We're gonna run a little bit short on time. So the next key component is social awareness. How can I better understand other people's thoughts and feelings? And how can I better understand why people think and feel the way that they do? Thinking about other people. Somebody mentioned it earlier. I think it might have been you. Was the empathy. The first thing they do when something happens is to laugh. And so empathy and being an empathic person is something that takes a long time to learn and to be able to do. And so one of the things that is a really simple activity, which I write on the board, we're going to have you guys stand up. So go ahead, everybody stand up. And just the whole purpose of the activity is to get them thinking about somebody beside themselves. Okay? Which is a task in and of itself, right?
Is this like a quarter long?
It's like a 5-year process.
And obviously, my handwriting is horrible, but you all get the general idea. All right, so you're going to have to move to the category that is like you or not like you, okay? So I'm going to shout out a characteristic. You have to go stand by whichever one suits you. All right, so the first one is shopper. If you're a shopper, it's like you, stand there. If you are not a shopper, not like me. All right, the next one is a recycler.
Sorry, let me see it together. I'm gonna put it in this corner.
All right, traveler. Not if you have money to travel. If you could travel, if you like to.
If I can talk about one.
If you would like to be able to travel,
Yeah.
despite finances. All right, the next one is musical. Whether you enjoy music, play an instrument. Okay. Are you a worrier? Are you organized?
Is there a middle?
All right, are you a homebody? Like to stay at home, cook for you happiest in your house? This should by
If I have
default
to
be
be,
opposite.
if I have to be absent.
Are you social? Whether it's social, you don't have to be in person. You could be like talk on the phone a lot. All right. Reality TV fan. Some people might not want to admit that.
Should I have a reality
I did this activity with graduate students, and everybody was on that side. Okay. Raised in a one-parent household.
I saw him on the weekend. I go in the middle.
No middle for you. All right. Let's see. Are you a runner? And likes to go run?
You need to go away.
I know it looks it too.
All right. And the last one is, are you conservative?
Like,
Moderate. Clothing.
Whatever, however you want to define that. He's gonna be moderate whether I'm conservative or not. Okay. All right. So were any of these kind of surprising? Did you think because if you do this with students, they may think that they're all alike and they realize that they're not as much alike, or vice versa. So this is a really, really simple, and you can shout out any categories you like for them. The whole point is to get them thinking about other people besides themselves, and if you have certain things that you're talking about and you want to see who's like you, not like you, this is maybe a less intimidating way for them to do it than have to stand up and share a story. Is really go stand by something, and it could be very simple. Go ahead and have a seat. You all did a very good job. Thank you very much.
we're almost done.
Yep. All right. All right, so that's relationships.
So the next one is relationship skills, and this is just kind of when we consider ourselves in context to our peers and in our building. How can I adjust my actions to have better interactions? How can I communicate my expectations? And how can I communicate my understanding and manage their expectations of me? So kind of like we talked about before, this is going to be a skill that develops later. They're still going to have to be aware of themselves. They're going to have to be able to manage themselves before we would expect them to have those relationship skills. But don't forget that girls, that's what they're interested in right now. That is their interest. Where do I fit in this peer group? How do I belong? What are they talking about? What's cool? What's not cool? Whereas boys are still struggling. They're still sitting and looking at girls like we talked about yesterday. So helping them and giving them tools to see if you want to talk to that girl, it might be easier to have a conversation with her than to lick her. It might be better, but she might talk to you past you licking her versus if you use another way. So just for the sake of time, we'll just keep moving on.
Yeah.
All right, so the last activity that we have for you today is a problem-solving activity. We talked about how we saw the video of Theo and Mr. Cosby going through and talking about his finances. And if you have teenagers or children or teenagers in the classroom, you know that problem-solving is one of the hardest skills that they have to develop. You ask them a question and they give you this answer, or they take forever, and you're like, that should be a simple answer. So we just wanted to give an example of an activity you can do to problem solve with them. So your obstacle is it's the end of the day today, so 3 o'clock, and you need to leave, and your car broke down, it won't start. What is the first thing you would do?
Yeah.
Curse.
Yeah.
You curse. Then what?
That's also
Try to figure out why your car isn't starting. Okay, so then you can't figure out why it's not starting. Then what? Okay, you call AAA, but you call AAA, but your cell phone is dead. Okay? Do you know your cell phone's dead? Because your cell phone's dead.
I wait for my colleague to come to their car, whoever else is in the parking lot. I need some help. We're at school. It's the end of the day.
Okay.
Okay. You walk home. You look
You want to
close.
wait for me?
Do you look close?
Couple months.
Okay, so that's a solution. You could walk home.
All right, but you live way too far to walk. He's lucky he can walk home.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Those of us that live across town from where we work, what would we do?
Turn the hazards on, turn your hazard lights on.
Turn, okay. Okay. Go back in the building and do what?
What would you do now?
Yeah, you just phone there.
Who would you call?
My wife.
Do you know her number by heart?
Yeah, 50329.
Emergency
contact.
Your wife's phone is dead.
Yeah, that's more believable. Okay, I know a pizza place. The number for a pizza place. They call a pizza place and get some lunch.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, like at least they have a way to contact someone else. I don't know. Give
Okay.
me a number for police station and I'll order a pizza.
Okay. You have pizza, but your car's still dead and you're stuck at work.
I'm just looking for a number for AAA through the pizza place. I'll buy a pizza so you give me the phone number.
Metro.
Catch the Metro. Do you know the Metro schedule?
I don't know the Metro schedule. I don't even know what Metro comes out here. You guys know what Metro comes to the corner?
I know.
Are you the only one in the park spot? Are you the only one in school? You can't get one.
Taxi.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Real taxi.
So you
Are you by yourself?
In the parking lot.
You were already on.
Wait, there's
So you
computers
were
in the
right.
All right, you see what you guys are doing? We're purposefully not answering your questions. Okay? See, you guys are sitting here problem solving through things, and we're doing this when you're calm. Now imagine you're doing this, and you're stuck on the side of the road, and you're obviously not calm. And so your emotions are up and your emotions are high. The whole point of this activity is to learn how to problem solve through things. Obstacles come at them, so you throw something else at them. It could be any kind of obstacle that it would be, but the whole point is that you are practicing how to problem solve through situations when they're calm.
And to help them think of obstacles. Because you heard Theo when he talked about his budget. He was gonna have a moped, he was gonna have $200 extra. They're not thinking about the obstacles that we know that real life offers. And so it's up to us, again, to be their prefrontal lobe. What am I gonna do if? And so having them go through a problem solving activity that's more age appropriate for them would be helpful and a model that sometimes things don't go as we plan.
And so that's the whole point to the final key, is the responsible decision making. And so being able to figure out your choices, what they are, and being able to prioritize those and make sure they align with whatever they're working toward. So this last part, and we're about done right now. So thinking about the 5 key components that we've talked about today, what are some ways that you're going to provide examples to your students in terms of thinking about the prefrontal cortex? What are some little activities that you might take away from this? Any particular activities you think you might try? You have a couple in mind? Okay. It's June. Where are you going to put those so you have them again in August?
We like to do this, like a similar one of that, like me, not like me, like the first day of school. That's a good activity here for the first day.
Okay.
I actually like the Bill Cosby and Theo. I like to do something around that, just to see how the kids also when it comes to money and being on their own.
Okay. Yep, so thinking about maybe picking 1 or 2 keys to maybe start on, and then just making sure you know where because I'm really good at going to conferences and then putting it away. Dang, where was that paper? I know I had it, and it was on the right top corner, and I know what that activity was, so just kind of planning. You guys are all probably really good at that. That's just one of the things I have to work on. But just making sure that you're kind of thinking about what activities maybe to start off. Keep it simple, start out really easy to begin to incorporate some of these things into your classrooms. Any questions?
Can you all put everything on the collab, the website?
Yep, we will definitely do that. All right, I believe it's lunchtime.
Happy lunch.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you all very much.